everybody. Seth Campbell here with the new Segue Says podcast. As you can see, I'm back in Boston. Now, this week, we're going to do two songs with the same groove, and that's about it. They're both swing 16ths, and they have the same tempo, so we're going to use that. It's a one-way segue, so it's pretty much just a flourish in a performance. The two songs are Cyclone by Bruce Hornsby and Bird Song by Jerry Garcia, although a lot of people know it as a Grateful Dead song. We'll get back to that shortly. Now, Cyclone is a very recent Bruce Hornsby song. It's from the 2009 album Levitate. It was Bruce Hornsby and the Noisemakers. And it's a really fun song. It's very intense, and it really showcases his band very well, particularly the live version that opens the Bride of the Noisemakers record. So if you haven't heard this song before, you know, I'm going to do my best, but you really got to check it out for yourself to get the full experience. It goes through a few different levels of intensity. Verses are very low and measured. Most of our years have flown away with nothing much decided, except the board we're playing on, how it's to be divided. Will more years yet die alone? The question's many-sided. I got no answers of my own, and none have been provided. Chorus is a big build-up. When I was young, there was nothing to know. The wind followed me wherever I'd go. The rain came down where I made my stand. The cyclone rose with a wave of my hand. With a wave of my hand. It's a very intense song, and as you can hear, there are a lot of words crammed into very little space. So it's always an interesting vocal challenge to fit all the words in. And then Bird Song was originally on Jerry Garcia's solo album, which is just called Garcia. And if I have this story correct, Jerry Garcia needed to make a down payment on a house. So he made a record. You know, like you do. They got Bill Kreutzmann, one of the Grateful Dead drummers, to help him out, and it was basically him and Kreutzmann, and they made a record and released it and sold it, so Garcia had money to make a down payment on a house. Now, usually it's the other way. As I understand things, you mortgage your house to get the record deal or whatever. But that's just a fun story, fun trivia fact, assuming I have it right. And so Birdsong first appeared on that record, and it was in D. But we're going to use the Grateful Dead version, which is in E. It became a live staple, and it's on a lot of Grateful Dead live records. And it was a piece that the Brew played a lot during their last year, and I'm happy to say I played some fairly decent flute on a couple of times. But it's got the same which is a swing 16ths groove. And of course, you'll probably know it. If you do know it, you'll know it by this guitar riff. Refrain, really, except it's not a refrain. It's too short to call a chorus. I'm not really sure what the structure of this would be classified as. I'll have to give that some more thought. I'll get back to you. But this is a verse, whatever. All I know is something like a bird within her sang. bridge, which you could consider a chorus, except it only happens once. It's a fun song. It's a very interesting song. And there are a lot of different versions. I think the best version in itself is the one on Garcia. But for our purposes, we're using the key of the version that's done by the Grateful Dead, which you can find on a lot of live records. I think there's a great one on the So Many Roads box set, which is just an incredible live retrospective in itself. So if you're a Grateful Dead fan, you got to check that out. Now, this is very much a one-way segue because the two songs are very different. In that Cyclone is very intense. I think we talked about this last week, the different moods with Heartbreak Warfare in Africa. Cyclone's very intense and kind of hard driving. And Birdsong, while it's the same tempo and groove, is a little more laid back. So personally, there's one exception to this where you can do totally different moods and come back, and someday that'll be one of these videos, but I'm saving that for a special occasion. You'll understand when we eventually get there. But I prefer to do this as a one-way segue, and so all you really need for that in this case is a pivot chord. And fortunately, even though Cyclone is in B minor, it ends on an E. And the funny thing about it is it goes back to a brief bridge interlude to end, and it's the only part of the song that is not in swing 16ths. It goes straight time for a very short period of time, just to solidify that it's, you know, a transition within the song, an interlude of some kind. And so we're not going to play the groove straight through. We're just going to come right back to it. So you have your last chorus of the bridge in itself, for example, it comes after an instrumental version of the verse. The first time it goes like this. Swing time returns and the last verse would come in. A mystery to myself, not everything how I was born to be, but all I know is what I wanted, and so the wind itself arose from me. And it just ends on this when the song ends. So you would have, and of course that E is the key of Birdsong. So you have your last chorus of Cyclone, which could jam out for a long time, and often with Hornsby and the Noisemakers does. When I was young, there was nothing to know. The wind followed me wherever I'd go. The rain came down where I made my stand. The cyclone rose with a wave of my hand. Still make the cyclone rise. The cyclone rose with a wave of my hand. The rain came down where I made my stand. That was my fault. I'm very sorry. Back to this sus chord a couple times, just to allow the groove to really set in. Just hold on E to establish that we're in E. And then let the groove start, the riff. and then flew off. And there you go. So 2 songs to definitely check out if you're not familiar with them. Really awesome songs by well-known artists, though they might not be the best-known songs by those artists. So that's a fun little segue with a swing time feel to it. And I hope you've enjoyed watching, as always, and I will see you next week.